Hello, everyone. In today's lecture, we'll be exploring one of the most thought provoking poems by Nigerian playwright, poet, and Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka. Now, the poem we'll focus on is Telephone Conversation, which offers a powerful commentary on the pervasive issue of racism in everyday life. Now, about the author, Wole Soyinka. Wole Soyinka is a renowned Nigerian playwright, poet, and essayist, best known for being the first African to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1986. Now, his works often explores themes of political corruption, social injustice, and the struggle for individual freedom. Now, Soinka is not only celebrated for his literary achievements, but also for his activism, as he has been an outspoken critique of oppressive regimes in Nigeria and around the world. Now, his writings blend traditional African storytelling with Western literary forms, making him one of the most influential voices in contemporary literature. Now, moving on to the summary of telephone conversation. What is actually happening in the poem Telephone Conversation? Now, Waltzmaker's poem Telephone Conversation is a powerful piece that explores racism in a subtle yet striking way. Now, let me give you a very quick summary about that. Now, the poem is about a black man who calls a landlady to inquire about renting a flat. Now, the conversation starts pretty normally with the man asking about the apartment. Uh, but then the landlady asks a question that completely shifts the tone, wherein she asks, "How dark are you?" Now, that's a pretty shocking question, right? Now, instead of asking typical rental questions like how much he earns or his references, she focuses on the color of his skin. Now, this is where the poem highlights how ingrained and casual racism can be in everyday life. Now, the man, instead of getting angry or upset, he responds with sarcasm. Now, his response exposes just how ridiculous her question is, and in doing so, he subtly challenges the landlady's prejudiced assumptions. Now, he doesn't just accept his racism, he confronts it with wit and sharpness. Now, in a nutshell, telephone conversation shows us how racial prejudice can show up in the most ordinary interactions like renting an apartment. Now, it's a powerful reminder of how discrimination can be woven into the fabric of our daily lives, often in ways we don't even recognize. So, while the poem may seem like a simple phone call, it actually packs a punch in terms of how it reveals the insidious nature of racism and how we can sometimes confront it with intelligence and humor. Now, moving on, now what is racism and how we can literally stop racism in this so-called developed nation? Now, we often like to think of ourselves as living in civilized societies where equality and fairness are valued. But the truth is, even in these so called civilized societies, racial biases still exist. Take, for example, the landlady's question, "How dark are you?" is a good reminder of how deeply ingrained racial discrimination um, can be. At face value, this may seem like a simple, even odd question to ask someone interested in renting a flat. But when we dig deeper, we realize the question is based on the assumption that the person's skin color is more important than their qualifications or character or anything. Now, it's an example of how people are judged based on their race rather than their merit. Now, this question reflects a much larger problem, racism. It shows that even in situations where one might expect fairness and objectivity, racial discrimination can rear its ugly head, whether it's in the workplace, in education, or in something as everyday as renting a flat. Racism affects our daily lives in ways that are often invisible yet deeply harmful. Now, what's even more concerning is that racial bias doesn't always come in obvious extreme forms. Sometimes it appears in subtle ways, like the landlady's question. And it's in these small moments, these casual interactions, that racism becomes even harder to challenge because it's often overlooked or dismissed as unimportant. So, why does this matter? When we look at how racism affects individuals on a personal level, we realize the weight of these small discriminatory acts. So it's not just one question or one incident, it's the accumulated effect of constant bias and prejudice that people of color face in this everyday lives. So, as we move forward, it's important to recognize and confront these forms of racial discrimination in all aspects of society, whether it's in the form of an offhand comment, a hiring decision, or even the way someone is treated in their own neighborhood. We need to be vigilant and committed to creating a truly equitable world for everyone. Thank you and have a nice day.